Hello and welcome to Morning Brew on Labour Social. I'm Graham Hughes. It is Friday. Is it Friday? It's Friday. Friday the 8th of September 2023. We've made it to almost the end of the week, so well done you. Big shout out to everyone in the chat there. Johnny Copperhead, we've got Scoopnam, we've got Richard, we've got Andrew and others. I want to talk today about Horizon, and how it pertains to our future as a satellite of the European Union. So, the important news is that on Wednesday night, after a phone call between our Prime Minister and Ursula von der Leyen, the head of the Commissioner, President of the EU, Commissioner, it was decided that after a 2-year hiatus, the UK would be rejoining the Horizon scientific project, a project worth £85 billion. Something that we should never have left, but we did because of ideology. Because the Tories put ideology first, especially when it comes to other people's money. And I'm using that term advisedly because that was Margaret Thatcher's term about people living on benefits. She talked about other people's money. You see, this government, when it's their money, when they can make money, they're all for it. When it's other people's money, they're happy to squander it on anything, ideology, or just give it to their mates for PPE that doesn't work, because that's what they're like. But the main thing is that we're now back in Horizon. We're also back in Copernicus. Now, Copernicus is a satellite system that monitors weather and things like that. We're not rejoining Euratom yet. Come to that. And we're also not rejoining Galileo, which was the GPS system that the EU was setting up. And we decided to leave and set up our own system instead. And Dominic Cummings was given £1 billion of your money to invest in a British GPS system that went nowhere and ended up costing the British taxpayer £1 billion. I mean, you know, some people say the Tories are corrupt. Those people are right. Anyway, so what I see is this is the first step towards rejoining the EU. And there might be some people out there going, shut up, Graham, don't tell them, don't give the game away. But I don't care, because rejoining the EU is inevitable. It is inevitable. You got to understand that we are going to rejoin the EU. It isn't a case of if, it is a case of when. We will rejoin the EU, end of story, because we have to for our country to thrive, unless we want our country to stay a basket case for the rest of history, the rest of time, the rest of your lifetime, then yeah, fine, stay out. But come on, realistically. Anyway, so 2 things. Copernicus, Horizon. Brilliant. We're back in. And as expected, the Prime Minister has come out with some nonsense about saying, it's all... it's a bespoke agreement. It's a bespoke agreement that we've got, in which, if we don't get enough out of it, then we'll get some money. We'll get some money back. We'll get a rebate. It's just like Thatcher. We'll get a rebate. But if we get actually more money out of it than we thought we would, then we have to give some of that money back. So it works both ways. It's pretty much very similar to the situation that we had before. But it's bespoke. It's bespoke now. But we've had 2 years of lost research. And don't forget, research takes many years. So it's not just like there was a 2-year gap. It was like research projects got abandoned. Millions and perhaps billions of pounds worth of research went down the drain because of the government's ideology under Boris Johnson, that we had to leave everything to do with the EU. That included Horizon. Right, so what's next? Well, Galileo, for the starters. But also, I would like to see us rejoining Erasmus, which is the scheme that allows British uni kids to go and study abroad for a year anywhere in the EU and vice versa. It's a fantastic system. It's been replaced by the Turing system, which seems to be only available for kids who go to Tory schools. I mean, private schools. I mean, Tory schools, and not really open to state school kids as much as as Erasmus was. So there's that. So Galileo, Erasmus, and then we've got a load of issues coming up very soon to do with checks on the border with produce coming in. Now, I'm going to try and foresee the future here. Look, Rishi Sunak, he may be tiny, he may be corrupt, he may be a crook, he may be a Tory. However, he's not a complete idiot. And he knows, even Rees-Mogg, thicko Rees-Mogg, thick as a brick, the haunted pencil, Rees-Mogg knows that if we start putting controls on food coming into the country, food prices are going to go up even more, and you're going to start seeing people starving. Not just malnourished like they are at the moment, especially children in this country. There's 1 million children living in poverty, but also properly, starving as a result of what the government's ideology is. Like, oh, we have to check everything coming in because we want to divert standards. If we had our standards the same as the EU, they wouldn't have to check anything coming into their place, and we wouldn't have to check anything coming in from the EU because we've got the same standards, and they can come and inspect our meat packing plants and check that we are keeping to the correct standards. Just one moment. Johnny Copperhead's dropped in a £10 super chat. Thank you very much, Johnny. I'm in the process of buying my very first home at the age of 59. Never had a chance in hell of getting a mortgage, so I took the Tory way and killed off my father. Bloody hell, Johnny. I mean, that is a tragedy, isn't it? That you've had to wait till you're 59, whereas I'm assuming your father's generation didn't have to wait that long. I've put these. I made a new portmanteau word yesterday on Facebook, which is a boom lord, which is a baby boomer who's also a landlord. The boom lords. I quite like the sound of it. It sounds ridiculous, but they're the people who really do run this country. Anyway, back to the EU. So, food checks are supposed to come in 5 times now, and they keep kicking the can down the road. It's been kicked down the road now till January next year. And the thing is, we don't have the facilities, we don't have the people, the staff to check all this food coming in. So we don't. That's as simple as it is. And also, it's coming in from the EU, and we know that EU's got some of the highest food standards in the world. So realistically, we're not going to find anything coming in from the EU because it's the EU, and the EU runs a pretty tight ship. The problem isn't that there might be an outbreak of botulism or salmonella or listeria from food and drink coming in from the EU. That's not the worry. That's not the problem, in fact. The problem is that under the World Trade Organization Most Favored Nation clause, it says that you can't give favoritism to a trade bloc or a country and not give the same favoritism to everybody else unless you have a particular deal on that actual commodity or on that process. The way that we could get around this is by standardizing ourselves with the EU, joining EU standards. But as it stands, there are farmers in America, who, it's a powerful lobby. There's farmers in Argentina, there's farmers in Australia asking why their stuff has to be checked coming in, which it does, and the stuff coming in from the EU doesn't. That's not fair, and they're taking that up with the WTO as we speak. So it could get to a point where the British taxpayer, because it won't be the politicians who put us in this mess who are continuing to break international convention rules of the WTO, who'll pay for this. It'll be us. It'll be John Q. Taxpayer over here. The Taxpayers Alliance are very quiet about all these matters to do with Brexit and how much it's cost the taxpayer. It's funny that they're more obsessed with that one person who's earning £27.49 more than they should each week, more than they should. Because, when they say that they're deaf, they're not really deaf. They can hear a little bit. So, get back to work. That's a video for later, I think. So, what I see as happening is this. we're going to have the government under Rishi Sunak kick the can down the path for another 6 months in January. And then next summer, we're going to have it announced that we're going to have a general election. Everything will be suspended. So anything going through Parliament will be suspended. And the idea that we're going to bring in these custom checks at that point, it's not going to happen. Now, Starmer said something quite interesting in response to the rejoining of Horizon and Copernicus. He said, brilliant, well done, good stuff. But also he would look at rejoining Euratom at another time. Obviously leaving the door open to us rejoining Euratom further down the line. Now, what I think is going to happen is the Tories will lose the next election. Labour will get in, and one of the first things they're going to do is align our food and drink regulations with that of the EU, allowing for a free movement of goods, services, food across the border. And they're going to do this in a way that minimizes the impact on the ego of the boom lords, because the boom lords are the people who run this country. They're the people with all the money. They are the people with all the power. And they are the vast majority of boom lords. It's a clever use of the term boomer here because I'm not talking about all boomers, obviously, just the ones who own property and use that property to make money by getting people to live in their property and pay rent to pay off their mortgage, their second mortgage, their third mortgage, their fourth mortgage, which I don't think is fair. I think you should pay off your own freaking mortgage. Thank you very much. And being a landlord isn't working. It's a bit like being a DJ. It's not a real job. I'm not gonna get any more super chats today. Get a real job. What do you do? I'm a DJ. What do you do that an iPod shuffle doesn't? Well, I put music on and I change the songs and I have this set and I play this set and people dance to it. Okay, cool. So if you play a song and nobody's dancing to it, an iPod shuffle would just play the song to the very end. You don't do that, do you? Okay, let's stop having a go at DJs. Anyway, I think that Labour, when they get in, they will go for regulatory alignment with the EU because it is the simplest, easiest way of this untying this Gordian knot of Brexit and this idea that we're going to deviate in our standards. Now, the thing is, if we do that, if we do have regulatory alignment, it means that we can, if we want, have better standards than elsewhere in Europe. We always could when we were part of the EU. It just means that we can't have worse standards. And a lot of farmers around the UK would actually welcome this because it would give them more of a level playing field to compete with farmers around the continent, around the EU. And don't forget, farmer subsidies have been cut to the bone since we left the EU. They have lost a lot of money. I think that any farmer who voted for Brexit, and not all farmers voted for Brexit, must be feeling really stupid right now. Really, really, really stupid right now, especially if they've seen their income plummet and the money they've made plummet. Because don't forget, we did an episode of Three Blokes or Pubcast in Wales with a couple of farmers over there. We were talking about Brexit and the impact of Brexit, and some of the interesting things that came out of it were the fact that, like, if you are a farmer making cereal crops, for instance, you don't make a profit on the cereal crop. You need those subsidies coming in. You need the EU subsidies to just break even, basically, or to make a little profit for yourself. Just trying to rely on the supermarkets buying you grain, just not going to happen. And so a lot of farmers, since Brexit and since these farmers' subsidies have been cut because we're not part of the common agricultural policy anymore, they have had to change what they're farming. They had to change everything. And a lot of farmers have been majorly out of pocket. In fact, that horrible man on the telly who was on Top Gear, Jeremy Clarkson, he did a show called Jeremy's Farm or something like that, Clarkson's Farm. And he talked about this, actually. To be fair, he was a Remainer. I know he's a scumbag, but he was a Remainer. And yeah, the amount that it has impacted on the farming sector in the UK is just astronomical. And also, there's a knock-on effect here. So farmers have had to change what they're making, and as a result of that, some of our staple products, your staple foods, aren't being grown in any of the quantities that they used to be in this country. So difficulties again. And we seem to be also, I mean, on top of all that, you got the weather, the climate crisis, and this weather going crazy. So in July, August, if you're a potato farmer, for instance, you couldn't get your potatoes out the ground because it was so muddy, because it rained so much in July and August this year. And now it's going to be 33 degrees over the weekend. I mean, we're having a heat wave. That's not great for plants either, crops. So yeah, there's a lot of things all going on at once. But my hope is that Horizon is this first step on the road back to the EU. Brilliant. And this is something that was said to me, I think it was Mike Galsworthy, back in January 2020, when we were just leaving the EU at the end of that month. And he said every step from now on will be a step back towards the EU. This is the furthest we're ever going to be away from the EU. And every treaty, every agreement, every deal that we make from now on will get us closer to rejoining the EU. And yeah, I'll drink to that. Even if it is just tea. Hello, everyone in the chat. We've got Lee Corn in there. Purity says, all I want is to be able to leave. I can't ever trust the UK now. That's fair enough, Purity. If we join the EU, then we can go and live anywhere in the EU. I think grain silos should be public sector owned, like they often are in some European countries. That's a good idea, Phil. I think a lot more things should be publicly owned. Like anything that's a monopoly, I feel should be publicly owned, because otherwise we get just worse services, shrinkflation. There's a lot of problems. There's a lot of issues with the capitalist system just allowed to regulate itself, which is what we have at the moment. We have a system where it's allowed to regulate itself. You're like, well, how does that work? And it doesn't work. It works very badly. David Faulkner, 38 Hong Kong dollars. Thank you very much, David. South China hit with the heaviest rainfall since records began. The whole region is underwater from typhoons. Who says climate change isn't real? Well, I think even the most hardened of climate change deniers are saying, "Oh well, the weather is going a bit more crazy now." But what do you expect? And you're like, okay. And think about it; it could be a good thing actually, because in like the Carboniferous period, well, the it was hotter and there were massive insects, and you're like, you do know that it takes a very, very long time for things to evolve. Like an insect that's this big, to make it this big takes probably about at least a few 100,000, maybe a million years or so. I mean, just what's going through their heads, seriously? In the meantime, we're gonna have more and more extreme weather. There's a Category 5 hurricane at the moment, Hurricane Lee, that is heading towards the United States of America. By the looks of things, it might hit. It probably won't. It probably move away. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But if that hits, I mean, bloody hell, there is no Category 6 as far as I know. And it's caused by the fact that we always have hurricanes this time of year. But the Atlantic is so ridiculously hot. It's 2 degrees warmer than it's ever been before. I mean, it's ridiculously hot. It's like 29 degrees or something. And 29.5, I think. If someone's checking the chat, they can. And it's sped up this, what was a Category 1 hurricane. It's sped it up to a Category 4, or possibly a Category 5, within 24 hours. I mean, it's just, yeah, these things are going to be every single day now for the rest of our lives. Climate disasters, and the way that we have to deal with this, the best way to deal with this is to take these oil companies, these extinction juice extractors and burners, and put them on trial and get money out of them, get all the money out of them, destroy their companies by suing them so much. The state of Utah is being sued at the moment because the Great Salt Lake, which gives Salt Lake City its name, is drying up. It won't be there in 5 years' time. And I mentioned a couple of months ago, there was a group that was taking a company in, I think, Portland, Oregon, they were taking them to court over environmental damage. We need to do this all over the world. The government of Nigeria need to take Shell and BP and Chevron and any of these other big oil companies that have destroyed the Niger Delta. They need to take them to court and say, right, we want some money out of you, but we haven't got it. Yeah, you have. You've been posting record profits. Oh, but we gave all that to our shareholders. Oh, well, that's your lookout, mate. Rachel Reese says, when I read Ben Elton's Stark, it feels like we are playing his plot out. Thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Yes, I agree. Down to the fact that these posh people, the guy who like runs the Star Arc thing in the book, if you've read it, is a heroin addict. But he's posh, so it's okay. It's okay because he's posh, and he can have a heroin addiction. It's perfectly safe as long as you don't cut it with barbiturates and baking soda and all the kinds of stuff, flour. In the book Stark, from what I remember, the richest people in the world get together to create a spaceship, and they're going to fly into space and live in space because the Earth has been so trashed. And he wrote this in the 90s. In the 90s, for God's sake. So, we've had a long time knowing that this was coming. A long, long time. And I thought that the satire Don't Look Up was very, very good. Came out a couple of years ago now. For its depiction of the media and the behaviour of the media, where you had these people on, there was Kate Blanchett. And who was it? Was Tracy Morgan was the other person? I don't know. And just having these people on these stupid morning TV shows, where they're just sort of laughing along, going, it's not really going to destroy the world, is it? It's like, yeah. Well, we got somewhere to be on Sunday. And they're like, yeah, but it's going to destroy the world. Is there anything we can do about it? Yeah, we can. We could do something about it if we act now, if we do something now. Oh, yeah, but what if we don't do anything about it? Have you ever thought about not doing anything about it? Which is the situation that we have found ourselves in. But yeah, thanks for that shout out, Rachel. Good call there. Is global warming the reason we put money away for a rainy day? Well, Mike, the thing is, talking about putting money away for a rainy day, you're seeing a lot of insurance companies refusing to insure. For instance, in Southern California, where they have a lot of forest fires, they're refusing to insure against fire in certain areas. I think in Florida, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, I think that insurance companies are refusing to insure against storm damage or flooding because they're not going to be able to afford it. Basically, if you have 1 million customers paying $50 a month for their insurance, and then suddenly 1 million houses are wiped out by a massive storm, that $50 a month isn't going to pay for all those houses to be rebuilt, is it? And insurance companies have are they called actuaries or something, who do all the maths on this, and they work it all out. They look at the statistical probability of anything happening, and they set your premiums accordingly. And they will not insure certain people in certain places because of climate change. We're going to be seeing much more of this. So if you are a publicly minded individual who thinks, that something should be done, maybe you could take the petrochemical industry to court because you can't get insurance anymore because of the activities of the petrochemical industries. That would be an idea. And climate change is provable in a court of law. It absolutely is provable. And it's also provable that they knew about it. These oil companies, they knew in the 1970s that this would happen. They knew 50 years ago that this would happen. And it's still happening. Howard Risby, in the UK, much insurance, storm, flood, etc. is underwritten by HMG. The government, oh, well, that's good, isn't it? So it's taxpayer, by the taxpayer. Okay. Jazz says, oh no, if you end up with massive bugs, it should make it easier for the Tories to find plenty of spineless bloodsuckers for the next party leader. Hey, I like that one. Are you saying a regulated heroin market would be safer than a prohibitive one? Yes, Christopher, I absolutely am saying that. I was quoting from the book Stark, but by Ben Elton, but I genuinely believe that a well-regulated militia sorry, a well-regulated drug cartel would be much preferable to the situation we have now, in which people are ODing, we have drug pushers. Why would you have drug pushers if there's no money to be made in drugs because it's dispensed from special pharmacies that you have to go and register in, so you can't get too much of it. You can't OD. It's not mixed with other stuff. I mean, there's so many reasons to legalize it. It's ridiculous. Although I would like to still make cocaine illegal because I hate it, and it turns nice people into gobshites, and it turns gobshites into Tories. And I blame a lot of the problems that we've had since the 1980s on cocaine. And you look at someone like Boris Johnson or Russell Brand, and you're like, yeah, we should probably keep that one illegal. Anyway, Alan says, wouldn't it be nice if we could implement our own version of the 2018 EU banking regulations, which would make it much more difficult to hide assets in wealth and offshore security jurisdictions? Yes, Alan, again, that's something that Labour could definitely look at. Because from what I can gather, and they haven't put out the manifesto yet, so we know nothing for sure. And it winds me up a little bit when people go, "Oh, Starmer's going to be awful. He's going to be awful." I'm like, you don't know. You don't know. Just give them the benefit of the doubt. Give them the benefit of the doubt that you gave to Jeremy Corbyn for 4 years. Give them the benefit of the doubt that, anyone's got to be better than the Tories, which is mathematically true. No one can be as bad as the Tories. But also, the way that I'm seeing what the statements that they're making, this is Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, and Keir Starmer and others, and Wes Streeting, who was on the radio yesterday. I get the impression that they're not going to just get in day one, repeal everything the Tories have done. What they're going to do is use statutory instruments to tinker around the edges, and things like getting rid of tax loopholes is something that they could do. They wouldn't need to have a big, song and dance about it. They wouldn't need to have an act of parliament to do it. They could literally use the statutory instrument to tighten up to close a loophole that is allowing millionaires, billionaires to pay no tax. I know Labour are definitely going to get rid of the non-dom status. They've promised that, and they're also going to put tax on Tory schools. Private schools. Tory schools. Great, do it. I want the abolition of all private schools, and I hope to see that in my lifetime. But this is, again, it's a first step. It's a first step on a mission to improve the lives of the vast majority of the people who live on this island, if not the people who live on this planet, which we need to do right now. Coke, spend an expensive evening in the toilet with other men talking to each other. It's the cool thing to do. Yeah, Jazz, I just hate it. Honestly, I hate it. I've never done any drugs. I don't like drugs. I don't like what they do to people. I think that I'd be absolutely insufferable on cocaine. I've never tried it, so I'll never know. But I just imagine how ADHD I am in just normal life. Yeah, it doesn't make people nicer, does it? It doesn't make people like more humble. Let's put it that way. It turns people into Tories. Anyway, they won't know, Graham. They are still whining now, according to them. Kids starving now. Still waiting for the list of kids who's apparently starved. Well, look, I'm assuming that most of the people watching this are going to vote Labour in the next election, or at least vote tactically in the next election to get the Tories out. So, I think I'm amongst friends when I say this, but I want to give them the benefit of the doubt for at least one term, and hopefully in the 2029 manifesto we're going to start seeing the sort of stuff that I really, really want, like PR, like UBI, like rejoining the EU, etc. It's Christopher Ball says, it's funny, I agree, funny how much criminality could be solved if we change how we treat it. Small boats issue disappear if we have safe routes. Yeah. And also, half of the people in prisons in the UK, are in for non-violent drugs offences. Something like a half. It might not be a half, but it's a high proportion. And let them out. Just let them out. Get them working. Get them. Stop them from what was the term that was used in the front of the Daily Mail the other day about disabled people languishing on benefits. Daily Mail, man. God. And there are ways to do things that would push us in the right direction without necessarily having to change any given law. Or, I mean, you can alter laws, but I mean, bring in a new law. One of the things that I would love to see, and that Labour, I don't think they've ruled it out by any means, is this idea that we have Leveson 2. The Leveson inquiry was into phone hacking. It led to the to the destruction of the News of the World, which has been replaced instantly by the Sun on Sunday, unfortunately. But it was a step in the right direction. And then there was supposed to be another one, Leveson 2, which was going to be looking at press regulation in general. That was never done. That was scrapped by David Cameron, which isn't great. So that's something that Labour could bring back in. They just say, right, we're going to have another inquiry. We're going to have, we're going to get to the bottom of this, and then we're going to bring in proper press regulation. Once to do that, and bring in things like, if a newspaper lies, they can be sued to hell by the government, on behalf of the taxpayer, sued into oblivion. And if they manage to keep going, even though they've been sued into oblivion, they've got to put on the front page headline for 7 days in a row, we were wrong and we accept responsibility, or something like that. Captain Bart Roberts says languishing implies a certain wealth. I'm certainly not languishing on the dole. Yeah. It's 86 quid a week. How do you languish on that? It's just foul. It's absolutely foul. The language, the spirit of these tabloid shitty newspapers, and 90% of them are Tory. And they're all up the arse of the Conservative Party and that ideology, which demonizes the poor, or anyone who's not rich, and deifies the rich. The hero worship of rich people is just it's as frustrating as it is depressing. That people go, oh, he's rich. Oh, I love him. He's rich. Oh, he must know what he's doing. He's rich. And 99 times out of 100, it's just luck. They've won the lottery. Whether it was a life lottery or the actual lottery, they won a lottery. It was just absolute sheer chance. It was luck that they got to where they are today. I've got to say, like, my journey to every country in the world without flying just relied on so much dumb luck. Like, you would not believe. I will give you one example before I leave you this morning. I was in Dubai. Yes, I was in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. I just got there, and I knew there was a ship that went to Pakistan and then India. It was called the Epic Line, the European Pakistan, India, China line. Clever, eh? The Epic Line. And it was run by CMA CGM, French shipping company, that I had already been on a couple of ships with CMA CGM in the Indian Ocean and the Red Sea. So I turn up, and it's a Friday night, and the weekend there is Friday, Saturday rather than Saturday, Sunday. So Friday night is their Saturday night. I met up with a friend of mine, Damien, from Manchester, and we went to a place called Rock Bottom, which is a club underneath one of the hotels, because you can only sell alcohol in the hotel, etc. So we're in this place in Dubai, first night there, and there's 2 pool tables, and there's people playing pool, and there's 2 guys, and they finish their game, and then they were about to put money in for another game, and we said, do you want to play doubles? And they were like, yeah, sure, yeah, come on. And so we're chatting with these guys, and one of them says to me, you look familiar. Are you on the telly or something? I said, well, I am here because I'm on the National Geographic Adventure Channel about my show Going to Every Country in the World, and I'm still on that journey. And he's like, oh my God, bloody hell, I haven't seen the show, but I saw the trailer for it. That must be where I know you from. And so we were chatting away. He said, where are you going next? I said, well, I'm in Dubai now. I need to get a ship over to Pakistan and India. And the way I'm hoping to do that is I need to talk to, I don't know, the logistics guy for CMA CGM here in Dubai. And sort that out. Unfortunately, it's the weekend, so I've got to wait till Sunday or Monday to call the office. And he just said, "You're not going to believe this." Pulls out his business card. Barry Dinage, logistics manager, CMA CGM Dubai. And I'm just like, dumb luck. Absolutely pure, 100% dumb luck. There's a picture of me and Barry in front of this big container ship about to leave for Pakistan. He does actual manual labor. But yeah. Oh, wow. I lost my connection. It just said I lost my connection. I don't know when I lost that, but I'm going to leave now anyway because it's 6 minutes past. So, thank you very much for watching. I will be back later today at 1 o'clock, I hope, for the agenda with Phil Morehouse. Obviously, Phil's a bit under the weather. I'm still a bit under the weather. So we'll see if that happens. And then this evening, I'll definitely be back for the Labour Social at 9 o'clock. So please join us for that. And until then, I'll say thanks. Oh, here we go. Lost stream. You got the streaming ring of doom. Let's see. Oh my God. Right, I don't know how much you missed of that, but I hope you got the end of the story. Wait, how dare you leave? I'm still here. I'm still here. Right, so yeah, I'll be back at 1 o'clock and then again at 9 o'clock today. And until then, I'll say thanks for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.